In this section, we'll be talking about systems of inequalities, and we're going to be solving these systems by graphing and shading to see which sets of numbers satisfy the system of inequalities. So we're going to follow these steps. First, we're going to graph the equation. When we're graphing, these could be lines, these could be parabolas, so just make sure that you do a quick review on how to graph these. But you're going to need to draw a solid line if the inequality is, let me go back to that. So solid line if the inequality is less than or equal to or greater than or equal to. So essentially if it has that line under the inequality symbol, that's when you know to do a solid line. You're going to do a dashed line if it doesn't have the equal to. It's just less than or greater than. Okay, so those are important reminders as we're going through graphing. The second step is to shade appropriately. So when we are talking about less than or equal to, we're going to shade below or to the left. So think about where your numbers would be less than. And then the opposite is going to happen when we have greater than or equal to. We're going to shade above or to the right, wherever the values are greater. Step 3, we're going to do the same thing if there's more than one equation or inequality in there. And then the solution is going to be anywhere where the shading is overlapping. So it needs to satisfy both of the inequalities in the system. Okay, so for the first example, we have the equation of a line, but we're going to make it look like y equals mx plus b first. So we have to rearrange a little bit. I'm going to subtract my 2x over. So subtract it over this way. We end up with negative 3y is greater than or equal to negative 2x, and then that's a positive 6. Now, to get the y by itself, I need to divide by the negative 3. So hopefully you remember that something special happens when you divide by a negative. When you divide by a negative, your inequality is going to flip. So it's going to turn this way. And that just happens anytime you divide or multiply by a negative number. The inequality is going to change. So then I can simplify these. Negative and negative is going to be a positive 2/3 x. And then don't forget to do that to the other number as well. So 6 and divided by negative 3 is going to give me a negative 2. So this is your equation of a line. A few things here. This less than symbol, equal to, will show that we need to have a solid line. So when we are graphing, this is going to be a solid line. And because it is showing less than, we want to make sure we are shading below. Okay, so, or anything less than the line. Okay, so think about your values as we're going through that. And the reason why I put this in this format is because this is how I graph a line, y equals mx plus b. So we always start off with our y-intercept, which in this case is negative 2. So I'm going down to negative 2. And then I'm using my slope to plot additional points. So I'm going to go up 2 over to the right 3 because it's a positive slope. Up to right 3, up to right 3. And then you can also extend it in the opposite direction. Okay. Then connect your dots. In this case, you can just connect them normally because it's a less than or equal to. If it wasn't equal to, we would just make the line dotted. And then we are shading below this line. So under the line, it's all these values that will satisfy the system. Okay, so just do your shading with whatever you prefer. Something like that would be perfect. Example 2 has 2 inequalities. So let's just take one at a time here. I'm going to rearrange again the very first one. So I'm going to do this one, bring it over here. So to look like y equals mx plus b essentially. So I'm going to subtract the x over, leaves me with negative y is less than negative x plus 1 because I subtracted it over. And then I'm going to divide out by that negative 1. Okay, so I have y. This is going to flip, so now y is greater than. And then don't forget to simplify negative and negative there and here. So that leaves me with x, and then that becomes a minus 1. So this is going to be a dashed line once I go ahead and graph it because there's no equal to under it. And then The greater than tells me that I want to be above or greater than this line. So let's go ahead and just graph this. So we're going to start down at -1, and we have a +1 slope. So I'm going to go up 1 over 1 just like that. Okay. And when I'm connecting my dots, I just want to make it not solid. So just dashed like that. Okay, perfect. And then I'm going to be shading above. Now, I don't recommend you do this, but I'm going to just shade above for now. Don't do it now because you're probably working with pencil. I can easily erase it, but I will show you where the overlap is going to be here in a moment. Okay, the second one I have is this one. So I'm going to move the 2x over to the right first, which leaves me with 3y is greater than or equal to -2x plus 12. And then I'll be dividing by 3, all of it by 3. This time I'm not switching the inequality, so I just have -2/3 x plus 4. This time this is going to be a solid line because of this line of equal to, and also it's also greater than, so I want to be above that line as well. So let's graph that. That one has a y-intercept of 4, so up here, and then a -2/3 slope, so down and over to the right, oops, and then up and over left. Just do your best. This time it's going to be a solid line, so I will connect those dots. Okay, and if I were just shading all of it, again, don't do it right now, but you would shade above the entire thing, right? So it would be all of that. Now you have to think about where this is overlapping because you want both of these inequalities to be satisfied with my graph. So I'm going to get rid of, so first identify where are they overlapping? They're overlapping just right there. Okay, that's where both of them are greater than. So then I can get rid of this and this. Okay, I know you can't do that, so that's why your shading should be done at the very end. So you want to be above this one and also above this one. So if you need to erase after you shade so you can see exactly where they overlap, do that. But it has to be above both of them. Okay. For number 3, there's 2 ways to think of this. I like to think of it as we're going to be shading between my 1 and my 4. But it's important to note here that this is going to be a dashed line and this is going to be a solid line. Okay, so I'm going to be solid at x equals 4. So if I go along the x-axis here, and I want to make sure that every x value is 4, I know it's going to be a vertical line straight up and down. Then when I go over to 1, I want to make sure this is a dashed line. Okay, and then there is that one. And so for my shading, if I want x values to be between 1 and 4, I'm just shading in between these two. I'm going to show you another way to look at it, and that is if I take just this piece, okay, 1 is less than x. Do you agree that I can just switch these around and say x is greater than 1? So you want to shade where x is greater than 1. And then if I take the other piece, this, and say x is less than or greater than 4, then I want to go between the two. So if it helps you to say, oh, I'm going to shade to the right using this one, but then to the left using this one, so where do they overlap? Right in the middle. That works too. However you want to think of this is perfectly fine. Okay, let's keep going. So this one we also have 2 graphs, but in this case we have a parabola that's being introduced. The parabola here is going to be a solid line. So y greater than or equal to x squared minus 4 will be a parabola again. Hopefully you remember that's a U-shaped graph, and it's going to be solid. Okay? Because it's going to be greater than or equal to, we want to shade inside the U shape, so inside the parabola. that's what the, parabola, that's what the greater than or equal to tells me. The second graph is going to be a line again, and I'm going to rearrange that by moving over the x, so that's negative x plus 2. This is also going to be a solid line, but I want to shade below. Okay, so shade below the line. All right, so hopefully you remember how to graph parabolas, but essentially this one's being shifted down 4 units, so my vertex is going to be down here. And you can use a t-table to find the values. There's also kind of like a pattern, but here are the intercepts are at -2, positive 2. You can find those by factoring. So if you were to factor x squared minus 4, that factors to x plus 2, x minus 2. And once you set those equal to 0, that's how I get x equals 2 and -2, okay? There is going to be another one at -3, 5. And again, you can find those using a t-table if you'd like. So here's my parabola. I know it's solid, so I'm just connecting the dots like normal. And I want to shade within, so inside, above my U-shaped graph, my parabola. I'm going to go ahead and graph the line now so that I can just do shading all in once. The line is a y-intercept at positive 2, and then it has a -1 slope, so down 1 over 1 in both directions. And then that one is also going to be a solid line, so I'm just going to connect the dots there. Okay. Now you want to be above your parabola, so inside the parabola, but at the same time below the line. So really you are shading in between these two graphs. And that's going to be where the system satisfies both of them. Pause. All right, last one. We have 3 systems this time, so let's just take them one at a time again. We have the first one. I'm going to rearrange so that it looks a little bit more like a line. So I'm going to subtract the x over, and then I will be dividing out that -1. Remember, when you divide by negative, we're going to switch the sign, and that's going to switch the signs on the right-hand side as well. This is going to be a dashed line. So I start down at -2 with a +1 slope, and it's going this way. And really for these, I just have a +1 slope. If you want to leave it as those dots, that's dashed enough. Or you can go back in and show the dashes. As long as we can tell, obviously, that it is not solid, then you should be okay. The middle portion of this, you're going to have vertical lines, essentially, between -2 and 4 is where you're going to be shading. So remember, that this first one is going to be solid. So solid at the -2. I'm going to go here and go all the way down, solid line. And then this one is going to be dashed. So dash at 4. And remember, for x equals, those are vertical lines. That's why they look this way. Okay. When you shade, you want to be between those two, the solid and the dashed. But I have one more piece before I can start shading, and that's y equals or less than 3. For y less than 3, this is also going to be a dashed line. And think about it, if x is vertical lines, y is going to be horizontal lines. So I'm going to go over 3 and go dashed in the horizontal direction. So I want to be below the blue, between the orange, and above the green, which leaves me with this area in between. Okay? And if it helps, draw some arrows. So like I know for the green one, I want to be above my green line. For the orange, I want to be in between. And then for my blue, I want to be below. So then if that helps you figure out which way to shade, you want to overlap all of those pieces. All right. And that's the end of these notes. Thank you.